the Trump administration is reportedly set to fire 80,000 employees from the Veteran Affairs. That's right, the people who take care of veterans. The Democrats are calling this a betrayal, an assault. We've got the data and stories to unpack this mess. Let's get into it. After years of progress, shorter wait times, more veterans covered, the Trump team, they want to hit the rewind button. This 80,000 employee number, this is coming from a VA internal memo from the VA Chief of Staff. They want to take the workforce back to 2019, have it at around 400,000 people. The memo says, cut hard, cut fast. And it's true that for the past 2 decades, the VA has gotten larger. But why? A big reason is because of the PACT Act. The PACT Act was signed into law in 2022, and it expands healthcare for millions of additional veterans because of the smoke pit, because of the hazardous environment, because of chemical exposure. Now, this was a bipartisan bill. This wasn't simply a Democratic-focused bill. It passed in the Senate 84-14. Interestingly, Tuesday night when Trump gave a big speech to Congress, he didn't say the word veteran not one time. Meanwhile, his team is plotting to gut the VA. Now, what is this where we look at the warfighter, and because there's so much value in the warfighter, they're out there, they're able to defend us, they're able to protect us, they're always out there training. We respect that. We're willing to pour money into that. Think about defense spending. Think about the Department of Defense. But when a warfighter transitions into a veteran, well, the value was extracted. They had value as a warfighter. As a veteran, some people will look at it and say, well, maybe not so much anymore. The energy is different. Democrats are not happy. Representative Mark Takano from California called it an outright betrayal of veterans. He's like the VA, they had to grow. New laws, bigger needs. What's happening now? It's dangerous. A senator from Connecticut went even harder. This is an all-out assault on progress. It's corruption, incompetence, and immorality. And then Vote Vets, which is a progressive PAC, they took it personal and even went further. They released a statement that said, "What else do you expect from a guy who called us suckers and losers?" This is based on fallen soldier criticism that Donald Trump allegedly said in 2018, which he denies. But picture this, a VA nurse in Ohio, hired in 2023 to help burn pit vets. She's swamped, but making a difference. The wait times are down from months to weeks. Now she's on the chopping block. Or take a veteran in Texas, finally getting therapy for toxic exposure. His counselor's gone if this hits. The VA is currently at about 480,000 federal employees. So if you were to chop off 80,000, which could be contributed to the Biden growth, that would be a 17% workforce reduction. That would mean 1 in 6 employees are gone. So for context, there's currently 18 million veterans in this country. The VA provides services for about half of them. So about 9 million veterans are getting services. So divide that out, and each employee supports about 19 veterans. Lose 80,000 workers, times that by 19, that's over 1 million potential vets that could lose support. The PACT Act alone added 2.2 million eligible vets since 2022. The VA hired tens of thousands of doctors, nurses, therapists, and the VA is saying, cut it. Just make the cuts. And what happens when you cut too deep? What happens if there's a hole and the services are still required? Well, then you just pivot and you're like, okay, come on in, private sector. You do it now. You fill the hole, private sector. And while you're at it, do it for a nice profit. Another example, imagine a claims clerk in Florida. He's hired after the PACT Act. He's clearing backlogs. Veterans are getting their benefits faster. Fired? That backlog balloons up again. Or a veteran in Montana, wheelchair bound, waiting for home care aides. Her aides cut. Now what? If you remember, wait times for the Veteran Affairs, that used to be a nightmare situation. We had 20,000 vets that waited over a month to see anybody. That was back in 2014. So are we going back to that? Is that going to be the standard where we're going to have to wait a month or multiple months in order to get the care that we need? And as if that were not bad enough, we have a White House lawyer. This is Alina Habba. She recently said, perhaps they're not fit to have a job at this moment. She's specifically referring to veterans that are not fit to hold a government job, perhaps in this moment. I served in the Army for over 20 years, and most military service members, most veterans I have encountered, they're more than fit to serve in this moment or any other moment. What some people fail to realize about veterans, especially if you've been deployed, if you have gone to war, is they have endured a lot of hardships. They've been in situations where their life was on the line, where there was enemy fire, where there was so much expected of them and they had to comply. At times, they had to put the Army's needs, which are the country's needs, above themselves and above their own family. Imagine you have a family with kids, and whatever the Army says is what goes. There is no quitting. You conform or you go to jail, basically. That's the situation. So to even suggest that right now, this might not be the right time for them to hold a government job, are we talking about return to work? Are we talking about going to the office for 5 days a week? Because a lot of veterans, they deployed for 12 months. They were in the office for 12 consecutive months under austere conditions in the desert, without showers, without internet connectivity. That happened. So if you're telling me those individuals cannot adapt and perform to an acceptable standard inside the majority of administrative federal government jobs, and to include, let's say, law enforcement jobs, I would say you're wildly off target there. I wouldn't even speak about it in your situation. I understand that she immigrated from Iraq, but the entirety of her career has been in courtrooms. She's been defending wealthy clients. And right now, her biggest client would be President Trump. And to speak further on that, right now, there's a lot of veterans across the country making headlines. If you do a quick Google search, you will see many veterans are saying they feel betrayed because they were voting for him without the understanding that that would be a vote that takes them out of their job. They didn't think that vote would have them in the unemployment line. They thought they were being patriotic and they were going to get rid of fraud, waste, and abuse, not indiscriminately firing probationary workers for no other reason than to make a number go down and to try to score political points with your base. They didn't think that's what their vote was going for. Now they understand. Now they realize it. But now is a little too late for a lot of people. I worked at the VA. I worked at the headquarters of VA, right behind the White House. There's 2 big buildings there. Every day I went to work, and about half of them were veterans. And they were getting after it. They were proactive. They had a strong work ethic. That picture being painted of these, sloth-like creatures that are just playing on their phone, not doing anything all day in a cubicle farm, that was not the reality over there. So a lot of people are drawn to serve. They serve in one capacity in uniform. They serve as a warfighter, whether it's a Marine, a sailor, a soldier, whatever it is, they serve. And they want to continue to serve the American public. And what better way than go to the Veteran Affairs so you can make a positive impact on the veteran community? That's their mentality. Or someone in their family serve and they want to keep the tradition. They thought it was the honorable thing to do. They did not think, I don't imagine, that their profession, their choice of career would have mud slinged all over it and have half the country detesting them and calling them the enemy. They are not the enemy. Now, if a rift does happen to you or somebody that you know, you want to make sure you're keeping the rift notice. That's really important because it's going to have a lot of information there. Maybe you have bump and retreat rights. Maybe there's a possibility that you could take a lower position and stay in the organization, or maybe you have to transfer offices. You want to keep the rift notice. You want to make sure you have a copy of your SF-50. You want to make sure you have your performance evaluation, and also get a copy of your position description. That could help you out a lot moving into the future. Now, as for these massive federal government job cuts, they're not the only thing being targeted. Not anymore. They're looking at contractors now. They're looking at defense contractors and other contractors that support the government, because we spend billions of dollars on those contracts. If you want to know how that could impact you or your desire to want to be a contractor, I want you to check this video out next. If you need a federal resume example, check out the links down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.